Hello, everybody. I hope you are warm and well. I'm so glad that you managed to join us tonight. I'm starting a little bit ahead of time, but if you guys have any queries, questions, please jump into the chat box. I'm super excited to chat with you guys. Hi, Aurora. Already glad to see some familiar faces. That's very, very good. And of course, I will not hesitate at all before I bring the guest of honor in. Let me bring Peter in right now. Um, and there we go. Look at you with your festive setup.
My tree, my beautiful new
Tree.
tree.
Just
Yeah,
for us. Peter popped his Christmas tree up right today, just for
I
us. How
did.
lucky do you feel?
Nice.
So listen, team, anybody who is joining us and you're writing in the chat box, just go ahead and make sure to switch out your messages from hosts and panelists to everyone. That just means that everyone can see it rather than just me. Unless you'd like to send me a secret message, that's also fine. I will accept secret messages also. But listen, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. This is my favorite event, and I'm so glad to have you for it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you, Lex.
Oh, you're so welcome. So I will be saying this at multiple times throughout this event. It's written all over the branding for it. Guys, we're going to be talking about the Christmas guest. But I have to say, we are doing spoilers tonight. Spoilers are welcome. So if you haven't read it, if you haven't finished it, all holds barred. I've told you now, we're doing spoilers. It cannot
Right.
be my fault. It cannot be my responsibility.
No
If you
lawsuit.
guys, exactly. I've said it. I'll say it 1,000 times. We will be discussing spoilers. Um, Great. Everybody looks happy in the chat box. Tammy, hi. So good to see you. Amanda, I'm glad that the kids were behaving and that you could join us. I'm glad. Peter, okay, it's been a while since we last spoke. We last spoke for 9 lives. And now we're doing Christmas guests. Just to set the scene a little bit before we dive into the good stuff. What have you been up to? We did Kind Worth Saving, right? That was
Yeah,
also this year.
it was. This is a two book year for me, so that's new.
We've been greedy. I feel like we've been taking more books from you than we've been allowed.
Yeah. I usually do the one book a year, but Christmas Guest is, since everyone's read it, we all know things about it, but we also know it's really a novella. It's
Hmm.
not quite a full length book. It's about 120 pages, I think. So, um, that's been my year. I mean, my year, of course, last year was the year I wrote Kind We're Saving and Christmas Guest. But other than that, I'm just now like working on my next book. The next
Hmm.
book, which will be, two from now, and getting ready for Christmas, which, we've already done today. So got the decorations up.
I think the
It's exciting.
decorations is a big tick. Like once you've got the kind of the decor up in your house,
Yeah.
it just feels so much more Christmassy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Then you can start playing the music and
Hmm.
you can start, drinking the eggnog. But because you can't really do that beforehand, can you?
I feel like Americans have to get Thanksgiving out the way. And then after that, then you can pretty much get the mulled wine and the eggnog in an IV, right?
Right. For the month of December. Yeah, it's true. Thanksgiving is like, because the rest of the world doesn't have this deep, this marking point where like, so some people are really funny. My neighbors, like day after Thanksgiving, like they're out there like tapping the like giant lights on the house. I mean, for me, this is a sort of like annual little bit of a fight with a wife, not a friendly fight. She could go the day after Thanksgiving. She likes Christmas all December. I think you should start. I think it should be about a week after Thanksgiving, if not a little more. That's just me. Everyone's different. And then there's my mom does it right away, but she also the day after Christmas, like everything comes down. So everyone's different.
On Boxing Day, everything comes down.
Yeah, we don't have the term Boxing Day, which is so
Okay.
funny. Yeah, that's just a UK thing. I don't even know like what is Boxing Day?
I have absolutely no idea. I'm going to
Why
Google
is
it
it
right
called
now.
boxing? Is it have?
I've got
I'm assuming it's boxing it's historical and not doesn't have to do with Christmas boxes.
um what does it?
The
Oh,
day of
okay.
leftovers.
It says on the internet, so it must be true. It says this custom is linked to an older British tradition where the servants of the wealthy were allowed the next day, so the day after Christmas, to visit their families since they would have had to serve their masters on Christmas Day. The employers would give each servant a box to take home containing food, bonuses, and containing gifts, bonuses, and leftover food.
Wow. So it's kind of a nice thing and kind of also like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
But it
we won't let them actually celebrate Christmas, but the day after it's all about, so yeah, but now, I mean,
the day after we'll give them our leftovers
our
in a
leftovers
box to take
and
home to
allow
their
them to go
family.
see their families. So yeah, Boxing Day.
Okay, so the chat box, Kat Stevens, yes, so Kat is saying it's when you give a Christmas box. Nowadays we tip the bin men, the postmen, etc., etc. Yes, completely agreed. But you guys must do that as well. You have to like
Yeah, yeah.
figure out a tip for the people who come and get your garbage cans.
Yes, we do that.
Okay, so great. We do all of that, but I cannot believe that your mother takes her decorations down on Boxing Day. That's wild.
Yeah, she really does. It's like it's over. She's like, Christmas is over, and it's like, you know, we're moving on. But her,
Okay, so
she'll be early. But yeah, and she has a lot, but I'm not a fan of the people who let it linger too long either. I mean,
okay,
2 weeks after Christmas, there shouldn't be a trade.
so I think in England it's kind of expected that you might still have your Christmas decks up for New Year's.
New Year's
That's
Eve.
fine.
Yes,
But then typically that week,
I
you
agree.
bring your decorations down, you get ready for work, you go back to work. Because I think it's either the 6th of January or the 12th of January. Somebody in the chat box correct me on this, but it's like some kind of, I want to say epiphany, which doesn't sound right, but there's a day where it's unlucky to have your decorations up after that.
Oh, okay. All right. I will
I'm
look it
sure
up.
someone will tell me about that. Oh, here we go. Amy
There we go.
Hay. It's the 6th. Okay, yes, that's it. 12 days after Christmas. You can't have your decorations up longer than 12 days after Christmas.
Yeah, that's a good rule.
I think
Well,
that's a very solid rule. I'd be happy to work on that one. But to your point about Thanksgiving leading into Christmas, in England, I would say we actually have it worse because and I am not one of these people, but there are people in the world, in Britain, who believe that Halloween is done and therefore the 1st of November, that's when Christmas starts.
no,
I
sorry.
disagree. Yes, no, I am completely on your side with this. Like, I'm a spooky girl. Please let me hold on to my autumn feels a little bit longer. And
Yes.
then 1st of December, that's when we can do Christmas stuff.
November is not proper. Yeah, that's autumn feels. Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
like let me have a kind of pumpkin spice latte and go and sit on a bench surrounded by leaves. That's what I want, please.
right. No eggnog latte yet.
No, it's not allowed. Like we can lust after it, but that's part of the fun.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so
We're solving all these problems here. We're setting down the guidelines.
exactly. Somebody needs to write this up and, put it out to the world, a memo to the world. We haven't yet solved the word peace, but what we have solved
And
is
when
the
Christmas starts and
Halloween,
when it ends.
Thanksgiving, Christmas
Yeah, right.
traditions.
Right.
Okay, so we are going to dive into the Christmas guest and we're going to get under the covers with these characters. But before we do, what's the way that you explain this book to people who haven't read it yet?
Oh, I'm never good at that. 10 books in, I should be able to describe my own books, but I can't. But I say it's, I set the plot up and I just say, it's about a young American college student who is not going home over Christmas holidays because both her parents are dead, um, and or gone. And she gets invited to an English friend's kind of posh manor house in the Cotswolds. And we hear this story through her diaries. And what happens that week is both Christmassy and quite sinister.
Christmassy and sinister, you're so right. We're going to come in on that balance in a few questions' time. But the first one is, you're right, Christmas in the Cotswolds. It sounds completely idyllic. And we know it's not likely to end well, something has to go wrong. So let's talk about where it started. Like you said, you've been in a kind worth saving, a kind worth killing. You've been in that world for a while. So when and how did you realize that you were going to write a Christmas story?
Well, it's interesting that it was actually a suggestion. This is the only time this has happened. It was a suggestion from my editor, actually my UK editor at Faber, um, brought it up, and he said, "Do you have any interest in writing a Christmas story, Christmas crime story?" And he said a bunch of things. It can be quite different. He said, if you want it to be a little cozier, it can be that. If you want it to be a novella, that's great too. It doesn't have to be a full-length book. But as soon as he said this, I was like instantly really intrigued. And I actually had been wanting to do this idea of the American student in England for a while. And then as soon as he said Christmas book, it kind of jumped. Those two things came together. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That I could do a book set in England, which I really wanted to do, but I also wanted it to have the outsider American perspective, because we see a lot of the Christmas traditions, the English Christmas traditions, through the eyes of Ashley Smith directly in her diary. So he asked me if I wanted to do this. I said yes, I'm interested. I let my then American editor know, or told him that I was thinking of doing this Christmas book, and he was just utterly perplexed as to like what it was that I was thinking of doing. He's like, Christmas crime, and he's like, and it's shorter. Like, is this your next book? What makes it he was just confused, because I think there's a very big cultural difference between
Okay.
Christmas specials. I mean, I think of British sitcoms, Britcoms. They always have the Christmas special.
Yeah, Gavin and Stacey Christmas special. Oh my
Exactly. We
gosh,
don't do
change the
that here.
world.
We don't do that. And I think like Doctor Who, it started. I mean, and the thing about the Doctor Who Christmas specials is they're actually quite creepy.
Yeah.
So there's this. I think you always do a Christmas ghost story on television. So I think there's a lot more of a tradition in the UK around having Christmas stories that are not Hallmark movies. And eventually, what's interesting is, so the American editor was confused and not really particularly interested, and we kind of scrapped it. And then it was over Christmas. Not last year, I think 2 years ago, and I couldn't get the idea out of my head, so I just wrote it, and I wrote it sort of over Christmas, which was fun. And then I sent it to my UK editor, and he really liked it, and my American editor ended up buying it as well. So it's being published.
Winner.
Yes.
I mean, I know I'm completely biased, but I will say that I absolutely love the UK cover. This is my favorite cover.
Too. Of the two?
Yeah, this is my favorite cover out of the two.
Yeah. I have this one too, and I don't have the American one. I honestly say that I love them both. I think the chilliness on the Christmas Guest English cover is quite good. It has quite like, even though it's got the house and the snow, it's got a cold feel. I like that.
Yeah, and I think if you're
a little cozier looking, but I love that one too because I love the illustration of it.
I think also this one, like if you're not like, if I hold it like this and you're not paying so much attention, you're like, oh, okay, that's a gorgeous house, gorgeous snowy scene. Oh, yeah, lovely little Christmas story. That sounds great. And then you see this blood starting to creep in the bottom corner, and you're like, yes, I know what I'm in for. This is going to be great.
I love the blood on that cover.
Yeah.
And it's very clever the way Faber did the little logo in white on.
Yeah. Can we like? I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, just there. Perfect.
I love it.
And I also love a good spine. We've got like the shiny spine. What is Amy? Amy is saying that she's never noticed the blood in the corner before. Well, there you go, Amy. Once you've seen it, you won't be able to unsee it now. Right. And I love this tagline: "'Tis the season to be wary." Like, perfect. Very perfect.
Good. I can't. Okay. I don't write my own taglines.
You don't? Is that a conversation that you have with your editorial team, or no?
they'll usually come up with it and ask what I think. And then, and I usually like it, but they don't ever ask like, can you come up with a tagline?
Have you ever done it? Have they ever done it and you've gone, no, that's terrible, don't do that?
Yes, but I can't remember what.
That's fine. It's
Um,
probably best that you don't tell us.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think we've had some I mean, taglines are tough because it's just a few words, but this is
Yeah.
this is the best one. Yeah, yeah.
'Tis the season to be wary. It's perfect. I love it a lot.
Very good.
Um, okay, so I want to talk about the house and I want to talk about the setting.
Yeah.
In all of your books, there's a really, really strong kind of sense of place. I listened to the audiobooks of both A Kind Worth Killing and A Kind Worth Saving, and that accent of the actors reading the audiobooks just completely cements everything into place on top of all of your glorious work. And the sense of place still rings absolutely so true within this book. Um, so the house itself is called Starvewood. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the place is called Cleve Acre. Is
Cleve
that
Moore, I
right?
think. Cleve Moore?
Cleavemore. Great, Cleavemore. So my question is, did you design those words because they are a little bit dark in themselves because they've got the words starve and cleave in them?
Yes.
Or is that just my imagination?
No, I was trying to come up with stuff, and I didn't want to be like too on the nose. I mean, maybe they are, but I didn't want it to be, creepy house manor, and I don't know, but yeah, I think I made up. There's got to be a Starwood house somewhere, but I basically made them up, and I just thought they had the nice feel of
Hmm.
you know blood in the snow.
Yeah, no, I like them. They're like I feel like a good story is always great, but it's those little details that I'm like, oh yeah, no, that feels like the glitter on top.
Yeah,
That feels like great. But let's talk about the Cotswolds. Have you ever been there?
yeah. So I mean, I have a long history with England, starting with my childhood, where my father's job got transferred. I was in New England in Massachusetts, and my father um, was briefly transferred within his company. It was going to be 1 year. It turned out to be 2.5 years, and we all moved to Essex, England, County Essex, Braintree, and I was 10, 11, and 12, which I think are quite formative years.
Mm.
Um, I think because I remember that move very well. It was a big deal, and all new friends, new schools, new country. Um, you know, I remember the first Guy Fawkes party I went to. That was crazy. Um, during that trip, we definitely went to the Cotswolds because my mom was a big fan of the cozy little villages.
Hmm.
And since then, I have been back. So a few years ago, I actually took my mom back and my sister, and we kind of had a return trip to England, and we rented um, a really cute, stone cottage in the Cotswolds for a week. So I know it fairly well.
Cute. So you knew as soon as you, 'cause when you think cozy and you do think British winter, a little cottage in the Cotswolds tends to make sense. So then beef it up into this like crumbling manor house, and you're like sold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I allowed
Step.
myself to be, Christmas, to you know layer on the Christmas tropes quite thick, because I think
Hmm.
I'm doing a Christmas book. I'm going to go all out and have it feel quite Christmassy. I'm not just going to have it be Christmas adjacent. So the house, all the decorations, the festivities, the big group of family around, all this stuff that again Ashley doesn't have in California,
Hmm.
has no family left. So this becomes this sort of walking into like a little winter wonderland of the English countryside, but also the big family, the big sideboard with the food and the drinks by the fireplace. I wanted all that in it,
Yeah.
quite thick. Yeah,
And that's the thing. I think with this book, you managed to completely juxtapose the kind of English representation of Christmas that is very much Kate Winslet in The Holiday
yeah,
with all of this horrific, menacing crime that seems to be unfolding on like around us. Like we've got roast dinners in the little English pub that's just a little walk down this snowy lane by a forest. Like we know
Yeah,
where we're going with whiskey nightcaps, whilst also managing to write about the darkest, like most panic-inducing scenes where these girls are walking with like keys between their fingers trying to get
yeah,
home.
yeah.
Um,
And it
like
turns out
about
really dark. It's a quite dark story. It's not even cozy crime. I mean,
it's not. You know what? I was selling this to one of my friends earlier, maybe last week, and I was saying, actually, I think this is potentially your darkest,
yeah, in some ways it is.
which I
Yeah.
love. Like, if somebody said to me, "Hey, Lex, do you want to read a Christmas book?" I'd be like, "Meh, I know, I don't know if I do." Somebody says, "Hey, Lex, do you want to read a Christmas book by Peter Swanson?" I'm like, sold. It's going to be grim. Give it to me.
It is grim.
It is
Yeah.
grim, and like I don't want you to be offended by the use of the word grim because in England we mean we use the word grim as to be like, ugh, that was the, it's a bit bad. It's terrible. What I mean is it's grim as in it's dark,
Dark, yeah.
like dark AF. Okay, so I've said it once, I am gonna say it 1,000 times. I'm gonna get into the spoilers, guys. So if you're here and you're listening and you haven't read this book, leave now because I'm about to ask spoilery questions. It's not my fault if you're all here. One person did leave. Okay, fine. So my message has been heard. That's fine. Okay. So, right, there's one scene that is probably completely just a scene in the book, but has stuck with me because it's a scene where Emma wakes up in Adam's bed.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely convinced at that point that we were going to go down some kind of incest storyline.
Right.
I was like, Adam and Emma are sleeping together. This is it. This is where we figure out what's going on. As the book obviously transpires, we know that there is something about Emma. But at that point, were you like Amanda in the chat box? She's validating me. She's like, yes, I thought that too. Okay, great. Tell me about this incestual red herring.
I think one of the things that I wanted to do with the book is layer on levels of like this particular family's horrific dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see it all. Like we hear a little, we know that there's some real depravity and cruelty going on in this family that comes from the parents on down.
Yeah.
And so I never thought in my head that I was going to make it explicit that there was an incest relationship. I actually don't think there is, except that it's um, they're way too tied to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think Adam has pretty unhealthy, weird feelings toward his sister. I mean, he keeps the dress with her blood on it in
Yes,
his.
which gave me like Carrie at the prom flashbacks of having this lovely dress with blood all over it.
So yeah, so he's there's some weird stuff going on. I never thought. I mean, if someone wants to think that there's stuff going on in the background that I'm not talking about, which is fine because I think we really see the story from a limited perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want this family to be a pretty bad family.
This family is a bad family, full stop, 100%. I can't remember when it happens, but there's a scene where Adam and Emma are talking, and Adam is talking about his father. Well, he's talking about their parents, and he's saying that his father will probably kill them, and their mother won't do anything to stop it.
Right.
That in itself, you're just like, what the fuck has happened to to let that be a very casual conversation just be happening?
Yeah, so I think in Adam has, so the dad is, and we don't really see the dad in action in any way, but we get the feeling the dad is his own version of a psychopath. Um, and Adam has either through nature or nurture has picked up on these tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but both of them are kind of figuring out ways to survive this family. and they form a bond, and their bond is surviving these parents. So I think Emma's, who does, obviously helps Adam get away with killing someone by killing someone else, um, crosses this enormous line uh,
Mm-hmm.
to protect her brother, because I think at the time she thinks that's absolutely what she needs to do, that he's her number one ally. So, and that comes from them feeling like they survived this family. So, there's all sorts of dynamics. But again, like, I knew it was going to be a shorter book. I knew I wasn't going to write. I wasn't writing um, a long, you know, um, PD James like exploration of a family
Mm-hmm.
dysfunction. I was giving you this one little peek inside of it, which was nice. It's nice to I kind of like writing that way because it
Did you find it refreshing?
I did. I mean, I loved writing the novella. I think that length is there should be more crime novellas. That's all I'm going to say. I there are lots of ideas I have that can't be stretched to 300 pages. Like they
Yeah.
really should be a 100 page. And I love reading them too. Like I love sitting down and being able to finish a story in a couple hours. I love that.
Yes. Like, actually, I was in New York this past summer and I discovered my new favorite bookshop in the world, and it's the Mysterious Bookshop.
Yeah.
Um, and you have written a little
Yes,
tiny
I did.
novella for their like what is it? It's like their own imprint.
Biblio Mysteries. It's
Yes.
it's Otto Penzler, who runs Mysterious Press, commissions them or asks writers to do them, and he's looking for really a novella that uses that has books in the crime.
Mm-hmm.
It can be kind of anything. It can be a bookstore employee gets involved in crime, or a collector, or something like that. But they always have some element of the book trade.
And you know what? Like, I won't go into the ins and outs of yours because I don't want to spoil anything or anything like that. But I was completely lost because I knew that I wanted to buy a couple of them. I was in New
Yeah.
York. I was trying to think about my luggage. But I was completely lost in all of the different authors. I was like, how do I pick? How do I pick? And then I saw yours and I was like, you know what? I know Peter has got my back.
Oh,
He is
thank you.
always going to be a solid choice. So I picked up yours and brought it home. Obviously, I read it in a heartbeat. It's so tiny, but that element, very similar to The Christmas Guest, of being able to tell a full story
Right.
and not leave the reader going, I wish there was more of that, or I wish there was more of this.
Yeah.
Amanda in the chat box has put, The Christmas Guest didn't feel like a novella to me because using the diary format allowed the bigger parts of the story to be condensed, so you still get everything that you needed.
Good.
And why did you choose to use the diary elements? Is it a narrative choice that came because you wanted the storytelling element of the flashbacks, flash forwards, or did the diaries come in anywhere else?
I mean, I think once I had the story, in some ways, I had what came first was the murder story, the idea of
Of Adam.
uh, um, Adam's about to get they're closing in on him. He's committed this murder, and they come up with this idea. We'll do a similar murder and make sure he's away,
Yeah.
and then it'll look like a serial, and he'll get away with it. That came first, and then what I always do when I'm thinking about sitting down and starting to write the book is, the big questions are always who's telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought it's going to be through the eyes of the American student Ashley Smith, and then I came up with the idea of diary, and then suddenly I realized that this could be a memory book. In other words, we have this adult woman who we actually think is Ashley. It's not Emma. Um, Years later, in present time, actually, she'd be about 50 something, finding this diary on Christmas Day and rereading it. And we assume she's rereading her own diary. Um, and then I think the book, once it became that memory story, um, that's when everything sort of changed for me on this book. And I realized um, it was about Christmas in the very specific sense that if something traumatic or horrible has happened in a Christmas in your past, then Christmas becomes a yearly reminder
Yeah,
of
the
that
trauma.
trauma. And this is obviously a much, a more uh, murdery version. That, I mean, I think this is true for so many people. I mean, Christmas is all about memories because it's this one thing we do it every year. It has the same things. It has the smell of the Christmas tree and the lights and the musics, and it can all bring you back to. Um, it often brings you back to your childhood Christmases. So for a lot of people, they're happy memories, but not for everyone. So this one's
Hmm.
quite literally like a murderous memory. So then and as soon as I was sort of going down that path, um, then I was like, oh, it's Christmas Carol, which is the greatest Christmas story of all time. And that's the theme of that as well, because it's, he's being visited by ghosts of Christmas past and Christmas
Hmm.
present and Christmas future, which is what happens at Christmas because we have all these memories and that's our ghosts of Christmas past. So then that whole ghostly element sort of came in late, late to me writing the book. But I really enjoyed it. I again, like I was sort of thinking of I could do something a little different with this book. It didn't have to be a
Hmm.
certain length. It could have a slight supernatural element, which I never really do
Yeah.
because I had the more freedom I felt like on this book.
Yes, so much freedom. Oh my gosh. Okay, there's so many things that you've just mentioned that I want to talk about. I want to talk about the twist. But first I want to talk about Adam. Like you've written like what someone who I would clearly describe as a psychopath. Um, Definitely a serial killer with a kind of nod to being a small town murderer and also a kind of college campus killer. Um, and there's a quote that he says. So yeah, so this is when he's, you're hitting that, I can't remember what the name is. There's like a something trifecta of psychopaths, and you either like hit your head when you're a kid, I
Kill
don't know, maybe,
animals.
yes, this is it. This is it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You hit the head when you're a kid, you wet the bed really late, and you have a tendency to harm animals. And it's when Adam is saying, it's about his dog, and she says, now that she's dead, it makes more sense that I would take a look at her insides. I'm going to be a vet, remember?
Right.
And that's when his dog is dead and he's decided to cut her open. Um, and I was like, okay, great, yes, psychopath, congratulations, you get your psychopath award there.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
like you must have had the best fun writing Adam and writing those scenes.
Um, yeah, I mean, I had this sort of image, and um, he's a type, and he's an American type too, which is um, he's kind of the private school kid who um, has zero empathy for other people and actually expects the world to sort of come to him. That
Hmm.
and he's obviously quite handsome and knows it, and he's so he can get any girl he wants and anything, and he's a little bit of the like American Psycho to him. I mean, he's going to be
Hmm.
like he winds up in politics. He could just as easily have wound up in financial and
Yeah.
investments in the city. Um, but yeah, I think he has the real psychotic tendencies, but he's also just really kind of a prick. And I think like that's like he crosses that line because he's just he doesn't care about anybody but himself. But
Yeah.
yes, he is. But he is a true psychopath, and he's sort of I think in this story either fully aware of it or becoming fully aware of it. And eventually we find out that he's continued to kill people and do it in
Hmm.
sort of in more and more clever ways in order not to be caught.
Yes. So I think that's the thing. Like, quite a lot of people think that the end of a book comes when the big reveal happens. But what I loved about this is that there is a big reveal at maybe 75% of the way through. And then we go back to that present day timeline. We go back to that kind of like older woman, and she's doing a little bit of research as to where these people are now. I love that Adam grew up to be an MP. Like, That makes total sense from someone who lives in the UK. Like, it doesn't feel far from the truth at all to say that there are many psychopaths running our country. Amy
Right.
agrees. She says yes, being in politics absolutely suits him. Like, cold, calculated, emotionless. Um, and then
We
of
have a few of
course,
those ourselves over here, by the way.
yeah, I think I can pick, yeah, I think you've got
Yeah,
one or two. I think, yeah.
it's not exclusive to the UK, but yeah, go on.
Um, okay, so but at the very end of the book, again, guys, I've said it 1,000 times. If you're not here, you're not here. He kills himself.
Yeah,
And to me, in this particular instance, I was like, to Adam, not to you, very much to Adam, I was like, you're a cop out. You knew what was going to come. You knew what was coming to you, so you took the easy way out.
he
But
did. Yeah,
what, like, you tell me about your decision to make that his ending.
I think he's had this run, and I mean, he knows it's all crashing down. Um, I don't think he can hack it. I don't think he can hack
Mm.
prison, and
He's too pretty for prison.
he's too pretty for prison, and they'll know what he's done. He's in other words, I think there I think there are examples. I think it happens in kind of the financial world too, where often there's like the crash and suddenly like all these really rich entitled
Hmm.
people lose everything and they just instantly go out the window. Because I think one of the things is he's never ever had a comeuppance, right? He's never had to pay for anything he's done. And he can't do it. He's not ready to do it. So he does go and take the way out. And I think symbolically he does it back at his family home, because that's who he's blaming for
Hmm.
the way he is. So again, I didn't write, we never see the world through his eyes. We really see the world only through two people's eyes. And you could probably write a whole book about him. I'm not sure it'd be a pleasant book, but he so I'm kind of imagining these scenes, but that's how I kind of imagined it. He's like
Yeah.
that. It's like that quick, like I'm not, you know, I'm not going to face up to the consequences of my actions. I'm not going
Yeah,
to do
you're right, but he takes it back home and he dumps it on his family home.
it.
He's like, look, again, it's just another thing of like, look what you guys did. You did this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about our main female narrator. Is it Emma? Is it Ashley? There's a part, like, who said it? Where is it? Laura Drinkwater. She's like, yes, this twist gave me goosebumps. There's a bit in the book where I had to read the same pages, maybe the same like 3 or 4 pages, like 4 times,
Right.
to be like, absolutely not. To be like, I cannot believe this is happening. Am I complete? And I was genuinely shocked that I was like, hang on a second. Am I wrong? Have I been completely thrown by this book? Literally everybody in the comments, yes, me too. Yes, I had to double check too. How does it feel to know that you absolutely threw us all against the wall and had
But,
us shouting at the books?
well, it's the best feeling. I mean, that's it's hard. It's increasingly harder to do with the twist, because a lot of books are coming out with twists, and now they even advertise them. This is one's
Do
going
you
to have a
feel like
twist.
a do you feel in like an undue pressure? Do you feel like a crime book nowadays has to have a good twist, otherwise it's no good?
I feel like there's this little bit of pressure for that, for the sort of game changing twist. I think
Hmm.
for me, I try not to think of it as a twist. I think of it as like trying to surprise the audience through how you reveal the information. So in some ways, there actually isn't a twist in this book. I mean, there is, but it's not a narrative twist. It's um, because at the beginning, Emma picks up a diary. She doesn't say it's her own, but she
Hmm.
doesn't reveal it either. So it's really just revealing it. That you, at what point do you reveal that what happened? That you're not, that the older version of this character is not reading this diary.
Yeah.
Um, so it's all about revealing information. I do feel like it's become a bit of a thing. I you know I'm actually a believer that some thrillers don't need the big twist. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, something like Jaws, which is not quite the thing I write, shark attacks people on beach, they go after shark. There is no twist. It's
Yeah.
just thrilling because it's scary. And nowadays, you could come up with some crazy twist on the shark. I don't know what, but I think, yeah, I do think there's like a little bit of pressure. I've had conversations with other thriller writers about this. She did a
Hmm.
panel, and it becomes a thing. Like, where's the big twist? But not every story needs them. But for me, I just think about information reveal, and that helps me understand what I'm getting at.
No, you're so right. And I'm almost like, don't get me wrong, I love a twist. I love the reaction that readers get when we read a twist. But I was talking, and I'm sad that it puts a pressure on authors because you're so right. It doesn't need to happen. Like I just read, what is it called? The Quiet Tenant by
Okay.
Clemence McCallum.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
And it's a brilliant serial killer novel, but there's no twist.
Yeah.
And it's pure atmosphere and
Yeah.
pure tension the whole way through. And I was talking to Catriona Ward, author of Looking Glass Sound
Yeah.
and The Last House on Needless Street. And she very much shares your opinion about it not being it's not a twist, it's a reveal. I knew this information all along. I'm not playing a parlor game on you. I'm using my narrative talent to reveal something that I knew and you didn't.
Right. Um, and sometimes the twists are, I mean, we all know, like, when they're natural, when you feel like they came along naturally to the author as like the
Yeah.
organic, and you're like, oh, that's really good. I mean, I think we've all read books where you're like, oh, that's an author wedging in a
Hmm.
game-changing twist. So sometimes they just don't work. Um, so yeah, I think do it if it's there naturally. Um, but I like what you're saying. Like, books can just be atmosphere. Uh,
Mm.
and you know, if like a serial killer is killing people, like that's a pretty scary story in and of itself. Not everything has to be game changing, um, or try and be game changing, because
Well,
it's just a good straight story.
yeah, it's like Adam, right? Okay, so when we're reading about Adam, you get bad vibes from him. You know that something is awry, and yet you read the whole book going, no, like it won't be that, it won't be that, it won't be that. And you stop thinking about that thing that you think it is because you get wrapped up in this entire story. And then even when you're reading at the very end about all of the other women and
Yeah.
about him finally ending up as an MP and then about his eventual suicide, you still finish the book going, fuck. Like, even though I'm not going to say that we knew it from the beginning because we didn't, but that being able to carry readers through a whole story, essentially pointing to the bad guy the whole time, going, he's a dick, he's a dick, he's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
dick, and still have us all on the edge of our seats. That's not twisty trickery like parlor games. That's just fucking great writing.
Thank you. Yes, I think, um, right. So sometimes go with the obvious, and that becomes its own sort of twist, because now everyone's expecting it to be some
Yeah, it's the anti-twist.
anti-twist. Right. We've invented a new thing, the anti-twist.
There you go, watch it. Peter Swanson, 2025. It's going to
The
be the
anti
anti-twist.
the anti-twist, right?
So I know we're running out of time. Guys, if there's anyone in the chat box who has questions or anything like that, please put them in the chat box and I will try and get to them. Uh, Peter, you mentioned it in passing a little bit, but let's talk about the effect of Dickens on this book.
Yeah.
Because I kind of love that this ghost does appear at the end. Because I think you're so right. When you think about true British cozy crime, we do think about Dickens, we think about Agatha Christie, we think about, I don't know, Marple maybe, of just like armchairs and fire and faces at the window. So the fact that this ghost appears and it was like a ghost from the past coming to her in the night, definitely Dickens vibes. And again, you said it yourself, you don't write ghost stories. This is not, you don't write
Yeah.
supernatural things. Did you always know that it was going to be Dickens? Did you want to weave that in?
I didn't know, and then it all again. What I knew was what happened in the Cotswolds that week in 1989.
Mm-hmm.
I knew why Ashley had been invited. She was picked, and I knew what the brother and sister were up to. So that's what I knew. And then as when I framed it as someone looking back, it was increasingly clear that um, this is she's remembering this with it's about guilt, and it's years later, but she's still guilty about this. Um, and then it kind of weirdly all dropped into place. I mean, this is nice when it happens. It doesn't always happen, but I was like, if it's guilt, it's gonna materialize. And I thought, it's a ghost. She's visited yearly, by not just the memories of what she did, but by often by the actual ghost. And as a reader, you can look at it as her, an imagined ghost, um, coming from her own guilt, or a real ghost visiting her. Um, you can definitely go either way. Um, Although the cat can see the ghost. Um, and
All cats can see ghosts. That's
all
just a
cats can
rule.
see ghosts. Yeah, it's a rule. So yeah, and then I was like, it's Dickens, of course, because I mean, Dickens isn't this crime story, but it's about his own past haunts him at Christmas time, and the horrible thing that he's become. And then for some reason, like the title, which was already in place, that she's the Christmas guest, and I was like, no, the guest is that she comes back and haunts her year after year after year
Mm-hmm.
as a guest. And then I was like, oh, guest is very close to ghost, and I was like, oh, this is all coming together. So sometimes it comes together and sometimes it doesn't. I've got plenty of half-written crap novels in my drawer. So, but this one kind of fell into place nicely at the end, I thought, and especially having getting to see Ashley one more time in her ghost form, um, wanting wanting someone to talk to, as she always kind of did.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so in the chat box, guys, tell me you got the Christmas guest reference. Please tell me you got that it's Ashley and that it's Emma. Please tell me you got them both. Okay, lots of people, excuse me, lots of people asking for more information on the ending. Okay, Amy, how did you decide to have Emma be the eventual downfall of her brother after not seeing him for decades?
Um, that was a weird edit. That I had an early reader on the book, and in my early version, she doesn't do anything. She's very passive, so she's just sort of yearly steals up her nerves and checks and to see. And this early reader was kind of like, I kind of hate that Adam's still getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, I didn't want it to become this, she returns to England and goes to get him herself. Actually, I was like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how could how could she do something about it? And she's protecting her life. And I thought, well, maybe it's simple. Maybe she just makes a phone call. She finds this journalist and she just puts the wheels in motion and hopes that it will lead to his downfall. Like she says, I think she throwing a rock into a pond and hoping
Mm-hmm.
that the ripples will get to him. So she does this, and I think it's as she said, it's going to put all this focus on him, and it's possible that it will put focus on her. She's living under um, a fake identity, so it
Mm-hmm.
could come back to haunt her. Um, but ultimately, she's quite late, but she's done the right thing.
Yeah.
So initially I didn't have it that way, and someone was like, it's too grim that he's still out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good suggestion, I thought, and I think it was better that way at the end.
I love the ending and I love that she does what she does, but I definitely wouldn't say that it takes away from any of the darkness. I think that Adam's end is still so dark and
Yeah.
works in all the right ways. Um, okay, so what have we got? What have we got? Okay, Kathy says, can we expect more novellas from you, or will you stick to full-length versions?
I'm not currently working on a novella, but I absolutely expect to write more. Um, I think it's a possibility that I could write another one for Christmas or another holiday. I mean, I also love the idea of, a collection of novellas, three crime novellas in one book. Um, these, truthfully though, publishing houses don't like them. I mean, novellas are
Hmm.
like no go in the publishing world. They want a novel. Short stories don't sell either. Though the person who gets away with it is Stephen King, who's a
Hmm.
really good novella writer. In fact, I think it's his best length because his
Mm.
full books can tend to, I think, get a bit bloated. But
Yeah.
when he's writing in novella form, which was, Shawshank Redemption and The Body and all these other great novellas he's written, he's really on fire, and he can do whatever he wants. So, but yeah, I will definitely write more novellas. It was really enjoyable to do that.
I would read like Peter Swanson, 12 Nights of Christmas,
There
12
you go.
short stories of Christmas crime. I would 100% read that.
I have a very different idea for a Christmas crime story. So I think maybe I'll try and write at least one more. I don't know about 12.
Yes.
12 is a lot, Lex.
12 is a lot, but 12 Nights of Christmas, it just
Yeah.
feels fitting.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's do last questions. Laura Drinkwater says, I was born and grew up in Huddersfield, so I got really giddy when it was written into the end of the story. How have you ever been, and what made you choose Huddersfield out of the whole of Yorkshire?
Yeah, why did I choose it? I looked at a map and I went, dude,
That one.
yeah, sorry. I wish I had a better story, but I think that's what I did.
No,
I
I
like
think
the way
that's,
it sounds.
I mean,
Huddersfield.
it's good. I like that as a kind of North American author for you to just look at a map of England and go, nah, that'll do, that one.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was pretty much it.
Okay, brilliant. All right. In that case, oh, actually, no, I have one last question. Is there anything that you expected readers to mention from this book in a spoiler discussion? Or have we covered off the main things that you were like, yeah, those were the bits that I expected from you?
My only question, because a couple people have brought this up and it was not my intention, that at the very last lines of the book, Emma's standing out and on the street, and it's like the Salvation Army guy can't quite see her. And some people
Hmm.
have been like, "Oh, is she a ghost as well?" Which was not my intention.
Someone said that in the chat box. Madeline, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna butcher your last name. Berquist? I'm sorry, Madeline. Madeline says, was Emma dead at the end? And if so, how did she die? I didn't get that she was dead,
I
but she's
don't
not,
mind
so
it.
that's fine.
I've heard this from a couple times that in a sense she's my sense. What I was getting at with that thing is that Christmas is a ghostly time for everyone. Everyone has their own ghosts at
Hmm.
Christmas, including this man who's sort of looking off into the distance, not quite seeing her. Um, but but I have heard from a couple people, not a lot, that they sort of were like, "Oh, Emma's dead too," and she's a ghost as well. And a couple of people kind of quite liked it, and I was like, "Okay, we can go with that." I mean, as an author, especially when there's not everything is spoken of in this book.
Hmm.
That if someone had some sort of different take on the end, I quite like that. So it doesn't bother me, but it was not my intention.
Interesting, interesting. It feels like some authors get quite like worried about the death of the author concept. They don't like to stray too far from what their
Yeah,
intention was. Um, but no, I definitely didn't get that she might be dead. Now I
yeah,
feel like I have to reread it again.
yeah. There you go.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna let you go with one final recommendation. We've consumed this cozy crime
Yeah.
uh no novella. What's next? What should we be going off and getting our Christmas crime kicks from?
Well, I have a couple favorites. I really do. I really love. It's my publishing house as well. Faber put out um, the P.D. James collection. It's the Mistletoe Murders, I think, which is great because that's a similar, like, it's a memory of a Christmas, and I quite love that. And then I have a weird little favorite Christmas book that not many people have heard of. It's called The Ice Harvest by Scott Phillips. who knows if it's even available in the UK.
I
It
will
is a
find it.
really dark Christmas Eve novel set in 1979 in Wichita, Kansas, and as a like a collector for the mob. It's just a strange little book. They did make a movie out of it with John Cusack, which I don't think anyone went to see, which is actually quite good. It's not as dark as the book, but it's a very Christmassy book because it starts with this like mob guy going around and collecting his 10% from all the strip clubs in Wichita, Kansas on Christmas Eve. So it's quite dark that way, but it's good. I love that.
Amazing. Great recommendation. Okay, we're going to let you go, but when is the next time that we are going to hear from you in 2024? What's next?
Book coming out in June, and I don't know the exact date. I think it's sort of mid-June. It does not have the word kind in the title, but it does include Lily Kintner as a character, and it's called A Talent.
Potentially one of my favorite characters that you've written.
So she's back in a new book, and it's going to be called A Talent for Murder, and it's out in June. So
amazing. All right, guys. So you heard it here. Let's get pre-ordering for the June book, A Talent for Murder. Peter, listen, thank you so much for coming to hanging out with us tonight. It's such a great novella. And I've loved getting to chat spoilers with you.
Thank you, Lex. This has been fun.
Good. I hope you have the best holiday and that you get a break.
Happy Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. All right. See you later, Peter. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.